What is wrong with people? What is it about a music artist or a band going mainstream and being successful have everybody screaming, "Sell out"? What is going on, everybody? Welcome back, music lovers, especially my rock music lovers. When it comes to punk rock music, most would say Green Day is very highly regarded in that category. Now, to quote one of my favorite content creators on YouTube, or at least something he would say, I'm talking about Finn McKenty, Punk Rock MBA. The gatekeepers of that genre would most likely dismiss the notion that they are punk rock, or would they? So let's be a little realistic here. Green Day may not be the first name that comes out of people's mouths if they started naming off punk rock bands. Now, when I was in high school, my friends and I, we'd go down to the local skate park. We'd be hanging out with guys much older than us, the generation before us. They would get us into music, and we started listening to stuff like Operation Ivy, Rancid, Pennywise, Bad Religion, Face to Face, NoFX, AFI, and to us, that was punk rock. That's what we were being told was real punk rock. And at that age, you're impressionable. So to us, that's the only thing that was punk rock and nothing else. Look, Green Day, whether you want to believe it or not, has deep roots in the punk rock scene, especially coming up and emerging in San Francisco, California on the Gilman Street scene. Now, Gilman Street got going around 1986, just a year before the band actually formed. But once they did, and they got in that door with all these other bands, got their feet wet, got going, they were essentially the house band on Gilman Street. Green Day was not the only band to get their start on 924 Gilman Street. Bands like Jawbreaker, The Offspring, Rancid, Operation Ivy are all bands that got their starts there. Rancid and Operation Ivy for me are two awesome bands because each band had my man Tim Armstrong front and center for each. Now, this guy's awesome. I've seen Rancid numerous times. I've seen the Transplants numerous times. This guy, he is deeply rooted in that punk rock scene, and he has earned his spot. But those bands all got a chance to emerge out of that scene. So we got to be thankful for what happened down on Gilman Street. So Jawbreaker, great band, awesome music. Now, Operation Ivy had a very short run, although very impactful. As it goes for Rancid, they're still rocking out, releasing new music to this day. And again, like I said, I've seen them numerous times. They're awesome live. But there is no doubt Green Day and The Offspring are the two bands to come out of that scene that just smack mainstream in the mouth. And hey, we all know who they are. Even people that don't really care about punk rock music, you probably know who The Offspring and Green Day are. Green Day's first musical release was called 1,000 Hours, and it was only originally released on vinyl. Now, this was 1989 when it was released. Now, think about that. Think about music, especially rock music in 1989. Let's just say the mainstream. To think how that was, and to know that you didn't know it at the time, but this little band Green Day was starting to get their feet wet and emerge out of a scene that not a lot of people were paying attention to at the time. So the first thing about Green Day's release of 1,000 Hours was it was released by an independent record label called Lookout. Now, the second thing was they weren't even going by the name Green Day at that time. They were going by the name Sweet Children. Now, I gotta be honest, does Sweet Children have the same ring as Green Day? Would it be just as impactful if that was their name through their whole run? Hindsight's 2020, but I'm gonna say no. Now, the year 1990 would see Green Day, and yes, at this time they were officially going by the name Green Day. They released a full-length album and 2 EPs, all in the same year. Out of everything they did in 1990, 39 Smooth was the album they released. The 2 EPs, the first one was the Slappy EP, the second one, Sweet Children EP. Now, on the Sweet Children EP, there's a song called Strangeland. This might be one of my favorite early Green Day songs. If you've never heard it, go check it out. It's pretty awesome. 1991, the following year, they released another album, 1039 Smoothed Out Slappy Hours. Pretty cool album. 1992, they released Kerplunk. This album, not only was it the last album they would actually do with their independent label Lookout, Kerplunk might be, and this is a stretch, I know people, if you don't know Green Day, you won't understand, but if you do, this is probably my second favorite album they've ever made. Out of all their albums, Kerplunk, my second favorite, hands down. Now here we go. This is what we're here to talk about. 1994. This is when Green Day released their third studio album, and this is the album we're here to talk about. And yes, of course, I'm talking about Dookie. The band got in the studio with music producer Rob Cavallo, and they were working through Reprise Records. This album, when it dropped, this was the moment. The punk rock community was all up in arms, and they all started to say, Green Day just sold out. Now, regardless of what anybody said at this moment, no matter what anybody said, this did not make any effect or stop any momentum on what this album's impact was about to be on the music world. So I don't know about everybody else out there. I love music, there's no doubt. And I have some of my favorite bands, and I have some of my favorite albums. Now, there's not many. In fact, I probably could have made a list for this video, but let's not worry about that now. Let's just say what it is. There's not a lot of albums that I can put on and listen to from start to finish, every song, and enjoy it. Well, Dookie was one of those albums I could do that with. Not only that, they had 5 huge hit singles off it. They had She, Basket Case, Welcome to Paradise, When I Come Around, Longview. And again, not just those songs were awesome. The entire album was freaking awesome. Aside from all the haters and naysayers out there, this album did exactly what it was supposed to do. I mean, for everybody involved. When you go into the studio to work on an album, what's the idea? You want to throw a dart and you want to hit a bullseye. And that's what Dookie did. It hit a bullseye. Regardless of what anybody had to say, didn't matter. The guys set the world on fire. This album sold well over 50 million copies worldwide. This is in fact the only album Green Day's ever made that was certified diamond. Certified diamond. That's a big deal. Now, 1995, they also won a Grammy Award for Best Alternative Music Album. Let's go off track a little before we'll circle back around to Dookie, but let's just say something here. The next 5 albums that Green Day made had huge impact in my life, and I guarantee, depending on when you were born, at what point in your life you got into Green Day, these albums had a huge impact. Because in 1995, they released Insomniac. 97, Nimrod. 2000, Warning. 2004, American Idiot. 2009, 21st Century Breakdown. Now I'm going to stop right there before I go into any of the later albums. Those 5 albums, huge impacts on my life. Awesome songs on all of them. Did they really, reach the success of Dookie? No. Not as far as a mainstream measuring stick, but definitely amazing songs and amazing impact. But I'll tell you one thing, 1997, Nimrod. You want to say, or they want to say, they sold out when that album came out. Okay, whatever. Nimrod, the song Good Riddance, Time of Your Life. Everybody knows that song. I don't care who you are, whether you're a Green Day fan, whether you're a punk rock fan, whether you're a rock fan, period. Maybe you're into jazz, maybe you're into orchestra music. You know the song Good Riddance. Now, they had a field day with that song. They said if they didn't sell out with Dookie, they sold out when that song was released. And before I say what I got to say about that, let's move on for a quick, because I'm going to circle back around to that song and the album Dookie. But let's continue a little. So 2012 to 2020, Green Day released more albums. Now, I'm not going to get into them because this is not about Green Day's career right here. I think I've already dug a little too deep into other areas that I maybe didn't need to. But I want to create a little bit of context. So maybe later we'll get a little deeper into their whole career. But again, all the way up to 2009 to 21st Century Breakdown, which is where I think things were pretty damn good up to that point. Not saying they were bad after that, but to that point, pretty damn good. Now, what is selling out? Now, I'm not sure the exact definition, but I know pretty much the general idea is any band or artist that wants to change or alter their sound or the way they look or the way they do things to get larger revenue from a mainstream market. Now, I gotta ask, you, my audience, do you really think that's a bad thing? So let's circle back around to 924 Gilman Street. Those bands that I named earlier that came out. Band like Rancid. Band like Rancid is still kicking ass and they're a success. Their career is a success. I guarantee the guys will agree to that. Now, did they have their opportunities to maybe get a little bigger into the mainstream? They did. In fact, they did dabble a little bit, but they got radio play. They got on MTV. They got stuff like that most will say smaller underground bands don't get that. Well, I'm not saying that it's their choice, but to an extent it is. Because there's a certain point when you're doing a great job, your music's hitting off, you're developing a fan base, you might get those options at some point where it is your choice. Do I want to sign with a new record label where my opportunities are more vast? Do I want to stay where I'm at? Now, I'll be honest with you, some of those bands, that is on their mind. They don't want to be a sellout. But to me, that's just being scared of what other people think. Why did you get into music? Because you love it. You love to play. Now, if you're so dead set on sticking to a sound and you never want to change, and that's actually what you want, stick with it. Not a problem. But if you know it can be turned into a valuable asset and create great income for you and your family, and it can be a success in your life where you never have to worry about working a damn 9 to 5, and you want to take that route, take the damn route. Now, do we want to say that the album Dookie, in the moment that Green Day released that album, that they sold out? That was the moment they sold out. Do we want to say that? Well, in the grand scheme of things, technically, if we want to, we could say they did, because they went mainstream. They changed a little bit of their sound. Not much, but they changed it a little to appeal to a mainstream audience. And they definitely got a lot of revenue from it because the album was a huge success. So, yeah, you could say they sold out. But who cares? I mean, really, do you think those guys honestly care? And what I'm saying is, I'm not saying they don't care about their fans and their listeners. I mean, you obviously got to be passionate about the people that are going to help you, boost you to the top, whatever career you're in. But in the end, I mean, it was a decision they deemed right for them. So who cares what anybody else thought?